Din 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 din. Welcome to the next stream. Another Monday, another stream, as always. And of course, as always, another quick sketch. So, of course, first things first, my weekend was pretty good. Was pretty chill, as always. I try to keep it chill. Just editing 2 videos, which didn't take too long, so it wasn't too bad. And now I'm here again. Yeah, so I usually spend my time on the weekends with editing my videos I recorded on the weekdays, basically, and then they are gonna be uploaded. One should be up right now, and the other one should be up tomorrow. So, of course, I've changed a few overlays and all that, as you can see right down there. You can wait. Can I hold on? I can probably show you. Wait, where's my mouse? Oh, right there. You can see my little upcoming or my schedule rotating text box, and also the next topic, so the topic for tomorrow, meaning if you, for example, check out the stream and maybe you're not that interested in the current topic that I'm talking about on that day, you can also see what we're going to talk about tomorrow, what we're going to do tomorrow. As you can see right there, we're going to make, or we're going to attempt at least to make a satisfying animation tomorrow. I don't know how long that's gonna take. I've never tried it before. I'll try to keep it as short that we can finish it on the same day. So like roughly like max 3 hours. And then yeah. If not, I think the last week we did the VJ loop, which we did 2 VJ loops actually, which both were shorter than 3 hours, so we should be good in I think we can do like a satisfying animation in 3 hours. I think we can do it. Today, as you probably saw in the title, today we're going to do a I want to talk about a few tips that I've learned or picked up while working with Blender now for 2 years. Just showing you some of it is just like tips and tricks to make your life easier. Some of it is more like technical stuff. We're gonna talk about what I'm gonna show you later. But of course, first things first. First thing we're gonna do is a good old quick sketch. So let me pull up my random number generator, make it smaller, and then I can show you one new change I've made as well. Look at that. Ooh, easy. And as you can see right there, this is my screen capture scene. You can see my window right here. You can see the infinite tunnel. And yeah, so let's see what we got today. How many objects do we still have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 left. Okay, so we put that in here, and then let's see what we got. Oh, number 1. Okay, what is number 1? Let's see. We got the big hornet. Oh, okay. Let's see. Let's extract that here. I also got some new music. I expanded my music library. So we should have some more tunes to listen to. Now the amount of music extends the length of my usual streams, so that should be pretty good. Let's see, source, of course we have to extract that. What do we have here? We have an OBJ, so we have to import that. Of course we have to import it, but we have to check out how. Let me switch back to Blender, and there we go. So let me import that real quick, and then we can work with the big hornet. We don't need this light. First things first, import. And OBJ. Good old. Of course, I have to keep in mind that I usually I sort my folders where I have my quick sketch and all my projects by months. So I have to keep that in mind, that I'm not saving the quick sketch of today in February, because it's the 1st of March. Let's see, 3D database right there, 3D scans, and then the big coordinates. Let me quickly pull that up. There it is. Oh, looks quite choppy, but I think with the textures it should look better. Let's see. Are there already materials applied is the question. There are. Nice. Okay. Looks pretty good. I already have an idea what we could do with this. So, are there any more textures we could apply? Textures? I guess not. Nope, just this one. Okay. I will probably change it up a little bit, work with these textures. Maybe we can make this smooth so it looks a little bit more like a little less choppy. We can see less vertices, and let's rotate this to the front and then apply the rotation. Apply the rotation, and there we go. I think we're ready. Let's change the size because it's pretty big. Put that down so one of the values is at 2 or less. Maybe right there. Okay, let's apply that, apply the scale, and there we go. Okay, let me hide my window, and okay. Of course I have my timer as well. And I think we're ready. So I already have an image in my mind that I want to recreate. So let's just be safe, let's save that already. So we have our base already set in the correct folder. There we go. Quick sketches, make a new folder, call that quick sketch a day 29. Now we're not synchronized with the month date anymore. Doesn't matter though, we're gonna keep going. Quick sketch day 29. Save that and we can go. So of course, let me pull up my timer, and I would say 30 minutes quick sketch in 3. Oh, hold on, I have to record, of course. Recording, there we go. Okay, perfect. So 30-minute quick sketch in 3, 2, 1, go. So first of all, what I'm going to do with this is go in here and go to the materials. I want to change this up a little bit. What I mean is I want to give this some like shiny areas as well. What we can do is just use this as again. We can pull this over here, and then for example use a color ramp, put the color into the factor. Oops, right. Oh, missed losing time. Pull this over here somewhere so we get some more of that darkness. So we have some dark areas and some light areas, more something like that maybe. And then we can use this color for the roughness. If you plug that in again, we can see nothing changed because we have to change the rendered view, otherwise we can't really see it. And then just to see it better, we can change from object to world and put in an HDRI so it's easier to see. Let's see what we need or what we should use. HDRIs, I would just use my standard, maybe this one. Okay, this is nice lighting. Let's see, is it plugged in, the roughness? It is. Okay, what if we change these values? What if we go in here, put just a light in here so we can see some reflections? The light is pretty dim. Put that to 100, I guess. Okay, change the radius. There we go. Okay, so usually like it should like what should happen is that these black areas become like shiny, but it's not really doing that right now. What if we put this to black? Okay, well, nothing happens. Let's see. Put the roughness down and... Okay, hold on. There's something else in here? No. What if we unplug this? Okay, interesting. It's not getting... Is it shiny? I think it's shiny, right? No, wait. Okay, I've never seen that before. Hold on. What if we recalculate the inside-outside? Maybe that works. Now? Metallic? What? Okay. How about we just make a new shader? Plug the textures in here again. What happens if I do it now? What if you go to flat? We can see it's quite like low poly, so it shouldn't be a problem in terms of geometry. Let's change the color just to see better, and then change the roughness down. Okay, so okay, it's changing. So put the color into the roughness, and we should see some different reflections. Maybe not as much as I would expect. Oh, now it's shiny. Okay, okay. Pull this further back. Maybe this more to the front. Okay, now we have some different glossy values. So some parts are glossy, some parts are not. Okay. What I wanted to do originally though is something else. What I want to do with this is rotate this to the side, maybe something like this. Okay, we don't need this light anymore. What we need though is a cube. We put that over here. And what we need now is another cube. We apply a subdivision modifier on it. Should we use a cube? I guess that's the best way to... okay, let's use a plane. Put that to the side. Apply a subdivision modifier, maybe 4. And then also a displacement. We then apply a new texture and use a clouds texture. Make this pretty big, I would say. Let's see. Oh, size. Also, hold on, we need more geometry. 5, 6 maybe. And then we go into textures, depth, put that higher. Okay. And then the size can be a little bit bigger. Something pretty shallow, right? Like that. We can then just apply all of these and we can rotate it by 90 degrees for now. Make it a little bit bigger. And what we're gonna do is go in here, extrude that to the side. Oh, right there. Make it long so we have enough geometry. Put that over here. And rotate this some more so get some hold on. Maybe something like that. Put that over here. Make this first of all viewport bound so we see what's going on, and then we use a Boolean modifier. Duplicate that and select this object, and you can see we cut into this cube. Make this maybe a little bit less. Before we do that, we use a bevel modifier. Put that over the other one, and you can see we get some beveled edges. Make it not as big, just like that maybe. And then we can use this to cut in some nice jagged edges. Like that maybe. We say bevel apply first, Boolean apply. Oh. And we do the same again, just a few Booleans to make this look a little bit different. Like a little bit more organic. Rotate it in certain degrees so we can get some like these nice cutouts, something like that maybe. Like let's apply that. Let's do it one more time. Boolean, and then select this and move it over. Oh, where am I? Okay. Like that and like that. Put it over here. And we get this nice Actually, let's do it maybe like that. A little bit less, like that. Okay. Go apply. Oh. And we can use this later maybe. Now we use this B, make it smaller. Or we can move this. I think that's easier. Put this in there like that. Okay. So now comes the interesting part. Let's move this to the side so it's not in frame. Let's say camera view. And we move this over. I mean, a little bit further back. And so we have this nice shot. Go to rendered view just to see. Of course, we haven't done anything yet. What I want to do before we do that though is go to background. I want to add a background that is not the image. So we go in here and say shader, mix shader. Oh, hello, Mr. Colorblind. Oh, okay. Different account, I guess. How's it going? Hope your weekend was great. Hope your Monday was great. Mondays sometimes can be quite annoying, but hope yours wasn't. Light texture, I mean light path to change the background lighting and background color. So we get this nice color we can apply. Make this a little bit darker. Like that, okay. Now let's work on this. I want to make this like an amber shader. So we go in here, make a new material. We first of all, we can probably work with this. Let's bump up the transmission so we can see through. This is the first step. Next step is put down the roughness. Ooh, looks already like some sort of amber. Perfect. What we need next is we could probably let's work on surface imperfections later if we have more time. What I want to focus on now, yeah, even if the day was bad, food always helps. Okay, so I want to bring in some more stuff in there. So I just go in here. For example, what we could do, we could do something interesting. Let's use this B, duplicate that to the side. We could, we don't even need that. We just go in here and then say make a new particle simulation. Put the frame start and end to 1 and the source to volume. Now everything is inside of this cube and we can say render. You want to render these particles as an object. Which object? The only one that is in there, which is the B. Now we have small little B's in there. I think 1000 is a little bit too much. Let's put that down to 100. Of course, you can see them now, these small little B's in there. I want to adjust them. First of all, the rotation, I want to apply that and randomize it so they're all looking in a different direction. I don't even think we need that many. Let's put it down to 10 maybe. Just want to put a few B's in there. Can we change the seat so we have the location a little bit different? I think that looks better. Let's see. Let's look at a few seeds. This one looks pretty good. Okay. Let's look at a few more. I want to have them more centered in the middle. Right now they're quite far on the outside. Yeah, I guess we could use that. So next up, let's change the color. So we go in here, amber color, something orangey like that. Ooh, dark orange. Then also what we need, because amber usually has some sort of like dust or something in there, so we can simulate that using a principled volume. Put the volume socket into volume, and first of all put down the density maybe to 0.1. Maybe that's even too much. Let's see, what if you hide that? Oh, and hide mute. Okay, you can see there's a slight change. We could maybe put that to 0.2. If we increase the color, let's put that also to something orangey. Maybe something less saturated. We can probably put down the density to 0.15. Okay. This might even be too much still. So let's put that down to, I guess, 0.0 to 0.05. Let's see if there's a change. Very slightly. Let's 0.8, I guess. Let's keep it like that for now. Next up, the surface is still too perfect, so we have to include some surface imperfections. What we can do first is, for example, bring in a texture. What do we have here? For example, a noise texture could work, maybe combined with a Voronoi texture. If we bring that to, hold on, let me see what the texture looks like. Let's then apply the factoring to the vector, so we can get these nice, I don't even know what you would call that. Let's see if we can maybe work with F2. Let's look at a few options here. Oh, of course we can change the, I don't even know what that's called, the method, I guess. Manhattan, Chebyshev. They all look kind of the same. What if we plug the factor into something else? Okay. This looks quite interesting. Okay, no, that's not really what I wanted. I guess scale looks pretty good. So we can then just use this as a bump map. Put that down there, and then just to see what it looks like, put that after a color ramp into the bump map and into the normal of the shader, just to see. Loading, hopefully. Yep. Okay, it doesn't really do much yet. I think we have to change this. Okay. Nothing happens. Why not? Why? Wait, hold on. Let me see what it looks like. Oh, wait. Okay, I guess I removed the dark parts. That doesn't really make sense. What if I just plug this into the height? Oh, okay, now we can see it in there. Okay, what if we bring down the strength, maybe to 0.1? Oh, hold on. Now. That's still too much, maybe 0.01. Okay, we get these interesting, I don't even know what you would call that. What if we put that into a, like, invert that? Takes quite a while to load. Okay, let's work with that and then include another texture. We use this pretty simply to make some more rougher surfaces. Color ramp, put that in there. And then we can say put the scale up, not too much though, detail up, and maybe even the distortion a little bit. Then let's reduce the amount, maybe to something like that. And of course we have to put that to 0.5 because we want to keep it in the middle. 0.5 is the base. If you go higher, it's going to be displayed as if there's like a bump. If you go lower than 0.5, you're gonna see more like a pit. And there you can see we have some deeper like imperfections or rougher imperfections. I guess we have to put that up a little bit because it's pretty shallow right now. We still have a lot of time, so we can play around with this some more. 0.0. We can probably put that at 0.1 and then just put this higher. If we put this black to something closer to 0.5, these bumps are going to be not as severe or big, something like that maybe. And then we can play around with this to bring in some more or a little bit less. Okay, this looks pretty good. Then I want to also, let's remove this, we don't need this. What I want to include are some like cuts. So I guess the best way to do that would be to use a, let's see if we can use a magic texture. We combine that with a noise texture into a vector. Okay, interesting. Let's see, what if we put up the scale? Okay, maybe it could work. Something not as detailed, maybe. Something like that. Do we need distortion in there as well? No. Okay, now if we use a color ramp, we could probably, let's see if we can reduce the amount of blacks in there enough. Okay, now just, I don't know what's going on with this this color ramp. Sometimes it's just not displaying what I'm looking at. Wait. Okay, I guess we're not gonna use that then. Let's see if something else works. We're getting sabotage right now. How about a Musgrave texture with a noise texture? Okay. We could probably just use a noise texture. Let's see. Noise texture is just useful for everything. So if you put the distortion higher, roughness also, and then just bump up the blacks and like clamp everything except these smaller parts like that. Maybe change and then pull this black value higher. We can see some cut-like imperfections. We can make them stronger by, for example, changing the scale or bringing in some more. That's what I wanted. Perfect. The noise texture is just always the best somehow. Okay, now we can use a mix RGB. Put these two together. We can combine these textures by using a multiply mix mode. And as you can see right there, it should now show us some cuts. Perfect. Might be too deep right now, so we can go in here and first of all change this to something like 0.5, and then actually if we leave that at 1, we can have these previous imperfections still. Maybe we can put this to something like that, and then we go in here and pull up these darker values. Oh. Okay, almost to 1, maybe to something like yeah, this looks pretty okay. Okay, so we have 9 minutes left, 9 minutes and 30. Let's see. Of course these like booleans look pretty low poly, which looks kind of weird. I mean, we could probably, the problem is, I guess I would have to cut in again just because this is pretty low poly. Even now, for example, let's switch back to the display to solid. What if we apply a subdivision modifier? Okay, it actually looks pretty good, so we can just apply that and use it again on this block just to make these low poly what do you call them, low poly like rough patches a little bit more high poly. So we use a boolean modifier, put that over there, select the object. This might lag now. Let's see, let's save first because I don't want it to crash. Okay, what about, oh it's quite slow. What about some rotation? I guess we've just we have to accept that it's like this look in terms of geometry, because I guess it just takes so long to fix it. So let's what we could do, no, okay, let's just leave it like that. We don't need this, but we can move it to the side. What about smoothing? Okay, that just looks weird, so we'll keep it flat. Next up, let's save it real quick, and then let's put in some lighting. First of all, let's bring in a good old focus empty. That's what I'm going to talk about today as well. They follow or track this empty. There we go. On the negative z-axis. Perfect. Just sorting my stuff out, and perfect. Okay. Let's pull this a little bit higher so we have a different angle, something like that maybe. Stusor-like fractures. I guess I would have to read up on that before I've never heard of that before. But I'll look it up after I'm done. So in roughly like 15 minutes after I'm done with post-production. So let's go in here and add some lighting. I think we don't need the HDMI, so let's disconnect that and let's plug this in solely. Yeah, I guess this we could probably just give this a color, something dark like that. Okay, let's then go in here and make a point light. For the first light we can say 1000 for now, and pull this somewhere over here for the main light. Make this pretty big so it's pretty soft in terms of shadows. We can probably make this even higher in terms of power. Okay, looks pretty good. Then I want to have a second one, which is more like a rim light, accentuating the edge right there. Put that to 6000 maybe a little bit more, maybe 8000. And then I also need a third one to just fill out the image a little bit better, because right now it's pretty dark. Maybe even more than just 3 lights. First of all, for this one, let's put this to, I guess, like 4000. Change the size, and then maybe move it a little bit further back, or maybe a little to the front, so it's not like you can't really see the reflections, something like that. Okay, so we have this nice, it's still pretty pretty blurry. Let's see if we can fix that. I guess that's because of the surface imperfections, or could it be because of the roughness? What if we put that to 0.05? Okay, looks better. I guess we could keep it like that. I think what I'm going to do is introduce one more. Actually, I think I like the HRI lighting more, so I'm just going to do that. I think that's easier. So let's bring back the HRI, and there we go. Yeah, that looks better. Way better. Just way easier to use that than setting up your own lighting. Of course, only if it's like only if it's convenient and like it fits to your scene. Maybe we can still use this, maybe to 3000 to give us some more brightness in the front, something like that. Maybe even more, maybe 5000. Okay, so we can see the bee. Then I want to just go in here, make a small like plane maybe, Put that to the side, make this like a leaf or something like a straw shape, not big, something like that. Make this round as well, just pull it down. Okay, make it smooth. Give this a shader as well. We have 2 minutes and 56 left. Make a new one. Make this, I guess, like something like dark brown, dark reddish brown. Less saturated maybe. Okay. Roughness can be pretty high. Okay. Next up, what I forgot also was I have to go in here into the first particle settings with the bees and set the scale randomness to 1. So these bees are more random in their size. They're not like, they're just a few, but I think that's enough. Okay, and then what we want to do is make a second particle setting. Put that also to 1 emit from volume. And say the rotation, randomize, render as object. Which object? This weird plane. Okay, set the randomness high. Put this value a little bit higher. Maybe not too high, because I want to make this quite small. It's more like dirt that is caught as well. And then we could probably put this to 3000 or so. Okay. We could probably do one more. So, because it's easy and like easy to make, we can just go in here. Probably just scale it up to get something longer. Maybe even put in some cuts. And then pull up one of like a few of those. Something like that. Just pretty random. Something like that. And then okay, then let's adjust it here as well. Just adjusting the shape so it looks more natural, not as like more organic rather than so manufactured like that. And then we make a new particle setting, set the same setting that we had before. Faces to volume, render up, of course, rotation, randomize, and render as object. Which object? This right there. Let's see which ones. Okay, those are the new ones. Are they set to? Okay, they're in the volume. Perfect. We can make them pretty high in terms of amount. Maybe 8000. Change the even distribution. Okay. Well, okay. I guess we need even distribution. Jittering amount. Okay, let's keep that at 1. Haven't played around with these settings before. Oh, we're already done. So I guess I just put this up and then keep it like that. Okay, that's today's image. Let's save it and let's do our first test render. Then we can do some post-production in Blender first and then in Photoshop, and then we're done. Let's set some settings, 50%, and that's already good. So let's save it again and render. I'm gonna drink something real quick. Okay. Thanks. Okay, so as you can see right there, it's kind of distracting that it's like this low resolution, these like Boolean cuts, but I guess like that's just how it is sometimes. Let's work with this for some post-production. Okay, so we don't need this. We work with this node setup. First things first, denoise to remove all the noise. denoising normal, denoising albedo. Let's... Okay, oh, nope. Let's mute and unmute to refresh the image. Of course, we have to first go to the image or render result viewer. There we go. Then mute, unmute, unmute, no, mute, unmute, and there we go. Okay. Next up. We could, I guess, let's see if we can use a glare node. I don't really do much in the Blender compositor because it's just easier to use Photoshop. Okay. Yeah, it just adds a little bit more like shine, which oftentimes just adds a little bit more like pep to the image. 0.5. Let's see if that works. Okay, I guess we could use that. Yeah. Okay. Then I think we're done basically. So we can save that and render it in full resolution with more samples. Go in here, 100%, save and render. So while this is rendering, I can talk about what we're gonna do today. Like over the last few, like over the 2 years of using Blender, I've just discovered a few tips that I think can be quite useful when working with Blender, not only like automating a few processes, but also, for example, rendering, like making your renders faster, or let me look at my list so I can, so I remember what we're gonna talk about today. Stuff like how you can make your own camera rig to automate stuff like the depth of field, or like the focus point, how you can, as I did right there in this image and basically in all my images, how you can separate the background color and the like environment lighting. Stuff like reducing your render times by rendering it in a lower resolution and then using programs like Photoshop, and like I think there's even a web application that lets you do that, where you can then upscale your images, which basically there's almost like no difference in quality. And also what the focal length actually does. There's there's a good example I can show. If you're, for example, working on characters, it's very important that if you're working with a like a if you're, for example, doing a likeness sculpt, it is important to have like to know the focal length, because otherwise your face can be really warped. Or if you're, for example, looking at reference, having reference with very high focal length is like the best, because then you can see the actual like features and how they look. If you have low focal length, usually the nose, for example, looks bigger than it actually is. And yeah, I'm going to talk about this stuff, and then also how you can use different scenes in Blender to basically have multiple Blender projects in one file. For example, for my characters, that's probably what I'm gonna use today as well. If you, for example, like I have my character done, I sculpted the face. Next up, what we're gonna do is add hair. But before we do that, we have to create the hair cards. And to do that, we have to render like our particle hair. And that could be in a new file, but I just use a new scene because that's easy, because then you can just switch between these two scenes and you can have both in the same Blender like blend file, which just makes it easier and faster to switch between them. Quick sketch, day. 19. I mean 29. Almost 30 days. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Let's switch to Photoshop. Perfect. Same, like I've made my own Photoshop scene because I think it looks better. Let's bring in our image. Quick sketch. Let's go in here, quick sketches, and then quick sketch day 29. There it is. Perfect. So, first things first, good old lighting adjustment layer. Maybe just to light up the scene a little bit more, bring in some more, please, like lighten it up a little bit more because it looked quite dark. Maybe bring in some contrast as well. Trying to not be too, like, no, not being too rigid and like bumping up the lights too much, because you can see right there it's clamping already. We lose some detail because we increase the lighter parts too much. I guess this could work quite well. Yep, okay. Next up, we use the dynamic adjustment layer to bring in some more saturation. Or dynamic, I don't even know what you would call that. I would say that I guess there's like a different name for it in English. In the English version, I might switch to that at some point. And then we don't need the saturation. I think it's quite saturated already. What we use though is the color lookup. We can then look through a few LUTs just to maybe get a... What about that? I think that's too orange, maybe even. Let's look at a few so we get a feel of what we got here, and if we see something that looks good, we can use that. This looks pretty good because we darkened the background a little bit. Okay. Ooh, some blue in there, cold blue. Looks good in, like, as a contrast to this warm orange. Green, I don't think green is the way to go. So I guess either this blue, which kind of takes away the orange and the color in the middle. So I guess the best is probably this one. Compare it before and after. Yeah, I think that looks quite well. Like, looks pretty good. We can then maybe decrease the amount because it's quite harsh on the darker spots. We lose some detail in there, but I guess we can live with that. What we could do also is make this a smart object and then apply a render filter on there. The render filter I'm looking at is this one. That's maybe over here. This might look too cinematic. I think this is more like a calm, or not as, like, I think you should focus more on the subject rather than the overall look of the image. So I'm going to keep it like that. Let's save that and export it, and then I can upload that real quick, and then we go over to the main topic. Before we do that though, I'm gonna look up what a Stuzer like fracture is, because I've never heard that before. Right there, save it in there. Okay, perfect. Let me put that into my phone, upload it real quick, and then we can go. I still haven't finished my 3D scene yet, where I that I can play while I'm uploading my stuff. But maybe I can finish it this week. We'll see. Maybe I'll just finish it on stream actually. Maybe. Okay, I'll look at that in a second. Let me finish my quick sketch real quick and then we can do that. Of course, I can cut my recording right there. Perfect. Okay. Uploaded and ready. Okay. Add a new image. What should we call this? It's crazy how different it looks after post-production and before, like the difference is so big. Of course, first of all, daily quick sketch day 29 called let's see, I wanna time freeze. Or yeah, let's just call it that, time freeze. And then some hash to the tags right there. And that's it. Perfect. First post done. Next up. Twitter. Oh yeah. I mean, okay, well let's change the name on Instagram. Okay, hold on. Where is it? There it is. Oh. B19. Okay. Saving, and there we go. Okay. Next up. Get a quick sketch day 29 called B19. And there we go. One more. Facebook is always trolling me, telling me I have some sort of like notification and then there's just nothing. Okay. Daily quick sketch day 29 called B19. Okay. And almost done. Let me pull up. Let me switch to my new scene, my display capture scene. There we go. Custom transition. And let's look up user. Okay. Oh, nice imagery. Oh, I think that's, you see the one that always does, that also does stuff like like daily sketches. Maxon every day, yeah. Yeah, I think I saw some of his on Pinterest. He does a lot with characters and like people, more these abstract environments, which looks really cool. Okay, let's his third one, you mean? This one? This is actually quite like, so okay, so there's a plugin you can use to get these fractures in there. Can it show you how it looks like? Let's switch to Blender. So, okay, we can probably even use this amber texture, amber object. Let's remove these particles real quick because we don't need them. We could probably just make a new cube. That's probably the easiest way. Okay, so if you make a new cube, or we could probably, to make it a little bit more, wait, is it laggy? Okay, I guess we can just make a new scene and then work with that. So let's bring in a model that we can use. I guess we can use a character as well. So let's open one of those. Append. Let's grab one of my old characters. So there's a plugin that you can use or like install that lets you do the same. You can mark with like the pen tool or the annotation tool where the cuts should be, and then it keeps that in mind and like fractures the object. I don't even remember when it was where I made this character. Nope. Let me look through a few folders so I can find it. Nope. Nope. Is it this one? There it is. Okay, it is month 10 of 2019. There it is. This one. Retopo, do we need the, I guess. There it is. Oh, it's it's like rotated. Okay. So we can first of all put this on there. Okay. So let's rotate this so we can have it facing the right direction. Okay, there are no eyes. Okay. Okay, do we need the base? We don't need the base, so we can remove it. We only need this. So the teeth are part of the, oh. Wait, where are they? Oh, there they are. Okay. I guess we can probably keep them in there. Let's just remove them. Looks kind of weird, but I think we can survive looking at that teethless mouth. So what you can use is, I think it's called like cell fracture right there. What you can do though, let's do that first. Cell fracture. Then you get this interface. Can you see it? Yeah, you can. Where you can set some settings. I haven't really played around too much with it. What I usually do is just go to the point source annotation pencil, and then he can just like draw, or you can draw how the fracture should look like. Yeah, so this technique I think uses the same also a Voronoi texture to create a cut. Let's see what happens if we just say annotation pencil, for example. Let's first of all draw in here. We use the annotation pencil, put that to surface. Now we can put an S in there, and it's on her forehead. Let's go back. Okay, if we, for example, look at the reference, it's like on the eyes. Let's see, what if we go in here, draw some, like some around her eyes first. This might be too elaborate, but we'll see. Also, this model is quite high poly, so it might take a while or even crash. We'll see. Just putting in some zigzags to give it some sort of idea how it should fracture its face. Okay, I think that should work. Let's go to cell fracture, put that to annotation pencil, and just say, let's see what happens if we press OK. And as you can see, it now uses, I think, a Voronoi texture to put in this volume, and it uses this volume that is like made out of multiple parts to apply a Boolean modifier to the original image and basically cut the image into multiple, I mean, not image, but model into multiple pieces. I think it froze. Let's see if it can recover. And then, yeah, as you said, once that is done, we can probably just put in a subdivision modifier to round out the edges. And then that should work. This might be too dense. We probably have to use a lower poly version. Let's let that load for a few. Like let's give it a minute. If it's like, oh, okay. If it's still not responding, then we'll try it again. The problem with this is, then if you have like so many fractures or like small pieces, they're all like listed in this scene collection like individually. So we have like this huge list of like hundreds of objects, which sometimes can be quite annoying. Okay, I think everything's crashing right now. Hold on. Oh, okay. Had to had to shut it off because my PC was freezing. I don't know if you heard that. The music was like sizzling and like almost freezing. Let's try it again. We could probably just open up the same blend file. Nope, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I just even like my mouse cursor was like trying to resist my commands. Okay. Like that. Okay, let's try it again. This is retopologized, so we should be able to go in here and reduce the... Oh, it's a viewport. Okay, let's go to wireframe. Okay, let's look at that. That's way too dense. You can't even see this individual faces. You can see them right there. That's way too dense. First of all, welcome, Aziz, my savior. Hope your day was great. I'm not really pushing it like usually when I'm just rendering stuff, but of course if you do like like a Boolean modifier of like 100 objects on this like head that is like look at that with these small faces that like not even a NASA computer could be able to would be able to compute that. So I have to put that down to maybe 3, and you can see now it gets way better. Maybe 2, just for presentation purposes. I think 2 looks pretty good. Okay, we don't need the eyes. We can hide them just real quick. Sometimes my just Blender just randomly closes, like shuts down. I don't know why, but that's not it's quite rare. So usually my setup is quite resistant to any crashes. That's probably also, I mean, I guess the most part is for the most part because I have like quite a good CPU. Well, not like, at least not bad. So it can handle most scenes. I don't even know how much RAM plays into this, but I by accident, I had to replace one of my RAM sticks. So I bought 2 packages, and I thought in one of the packages there's just one of those, but then when they arrived, I had 4 all of a sudden, because in one of these packages were 2 each, so I had then 4, so I plugged all 4 of them in. So now I have I think 32 gigabytes of RAM. So in terms of RAM, I should be good. I was thinking about upgrading my rig at some point, but that's probably still a few months or so out. Okay, so we wanted to fracture this. Let's see. Let's apply the multi-rest first. So we have this low poly version, perfect. And then let's draw in again using annotations. Where's my annotations? Right there. Put that to, where are the settings? My settings are gone. It's an old version of, oh no, it's a new one. There are no settings. My settings just went missing. Oh, there it is. Surface. Okay. Let's make it a little bit loose, so we're not sitting here forever. Okay. Something like that. And then adding these cracks on the outside, maybe even some in the inside. Not too many though, because we don't want to have too many small pieces. Okay, this should work. Okay, now if we go in here and use the self-fracture. Oh, I think in this version I have to install it first, so we can go to preferences. You can't see this window, but I'll just do it quickly. Just called self-fracture. There it is. An add-on. There we go. And now self-fracture. Okay, the annotation pencil. We could probably let's see if it works now with way less geometry. Okay, it looked better. Looked a little bit more smooth, but it's freezing. Let's see if it can recover. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Okay. So what it does is it keeps a copy, or it duplicates the whole mesh and then cuts that into pieces. So if you look at this now, if I extend this list, you can see all these small parts now, and one of them is the original. There it was. There it is. Okay, so we can put this to the side, and this is the fractured piece. You can see it's not fully. It hasn't traced this annotation pencil, but it's close. You can see there's more smaller fractures on her eyes, around her eyes, and then some bigger ones, like on the back of the head and all that. So let's see if we then go in here and select a few of these pieces, like that, on this side as well. Go in here, a few more. Okay, we can then just pull them forward. Let's remove this one. Nope, remove this one as well. And then, oh. Ooh, and there we go. We can get some, like a similar look. We can, let's put this to the side for now. Let's remove a few more pieces. Of course, you can still customize it, but this is the basic look. I think it like chooses a center point, so we have this center point right now. But now let's see. The only problem, of course, now is the subdivision. Oh, I mean, we could, if you want to apply a subdivision to all of those pieces all together, we can just select all of it. If we select the whole list of, how many do we have here? 202 pieces. There we go. Oh, there's one more. And then we can press Ctrl J to join them into the same object. So there's just one now. And we can then apply a subdivision to this. Let's see the topology just to see. Okay, so we have these, of course, these weird Boolean cuts. That's just what Boolean does. And then subdivision. I guess because we have these big Boolean cuts, it might be a problem because we don't really have like good topology. What we could do before, oh, actually, okay. What we could also do, you can see it looks better now, but we have another option. Let's see if that works better. We use remesh. Of course, it looks weird right now, but if we decrease the voxel size, we get more geometry. Maybe that works as well. Only problem is that it joins these. Oh no, it froze again. It's too small. The only problem is, like, if the pieces are too close together, it just connects them. So I guess subdivision is the best way to do it. And then you can always, if you want to like smooth out some corners, just go in there in the sculpt mode and then just like round them off, smooth them, for example, and then you can get a similar result. I guess. Let's see if we can recover. Let's give it a few seconds and then we'll go over to today's topic. We broke it again. Hopefully it's not freezing again. Okay, let's cut it right there. And then go over to, 95% of, okay. 92% of RAM. Perfect. Let's close that. Okay. Okay. So, open up Blender so I can tell you some of my secrets. Secrets I would have loved to know when I started Blender. There we go. I mean, you just tell me what what you want to know. It's my problem when I try. Okay. So, do we have to set up something? I mean, I guess we could do so. Oh yeah, we could set up the scene first, and then I can even show one of the tips I have because we set up our scene. So let's see, what do we have here? First of all, a camera rig, a very simple camera rig. So what do we need for a camera rig? What I wanted to do is basically, usually when I move my camera and you have some sort of objects in here, I don't know, a meta ball. Oh, you see the camera view right there. If you want to, for example, put this camera over here, then you would have to like rotate it somehow over there again, and then maybe rotate it like that on the z-axis so we have the correct rotation. I wanted to kind of automate that, and then of course if you go into camera you have to then enable depth of field, go to viewport display, enable show limits so you can see where the focus point of the depth of field is, and then you can change the distance to change the focus. So now this point, the surface of the meta ball, is the focus point. But I wanted to make this easier on myself. So what I did is make a very simple camera rig using 2 objects and a camera. If we, for example, keep this, switch to rendered view, and maybe duplicate this even, or we can just say make a UV sphere and then use an array modifier to make it easier. Put that to 4, and there we go. Then we say we make 2 empties. The first one right there, call it something like focus. And the next one, another one, we can just duplicate this. We can of course use another one as well, like a, I don't know, a cube, but I think an empty works best because you have this middle point right there where all these lines intersect, and we can call this DOF for depth of field. What we can do with this is, if we go into the camera and go to constraints, we can say this camera should track, damped track, or track to. I usually use damped track. And then say which target we use the focus empty. We then have to switch the track axis to -z, and there we go. Now if you move this empty, the camera follows this empty. And also the best thing about this is you can say, okay, I want to, for example, want to have the focus on this sphere right there, like on this side. You can put it right there, and then you can move your camera and look at the viewport down there. Ooh, it will always focus on that point, so you don't always have to rotate the camera when you move it to a different spot. You can just move it around and the camera will always focus on that spot. And of course it's not all. We have 2 empties, so what we're going to do with the second one, let me put in an HDRI so we can see it better. Some studio lighting, this one right there, perfect. Oh, of course we can show 2 tricks in one scene. So next trick is, right now if you see it, we have the background is the HDRI for the lighting. I just plugged in an environment texture, which is an HDRI that you can see. You can see that the background is now the image. If you don't want to have the image like be your HDRI, you can just duplicate this background, use a mix shader, plug in both of those, and then use the light path node and use this plug right there, is camera array, plug that in there. And now the first background node determines what lighting is in the scene, and the second one determines what color your background is. So you could then, for example, I mean, if you would want that, the easiest way, what I usually do is I want to have lighting in the scene, but my background should be dark. If I, for example, just use this as my lighting, this background node, you have no lighting, but of course you want to have lighting and a dark background. So we just combine these two and we can have both. If you want to have like another HDRI as your background, like one HDRI for the lightings, for the world lighting, and one HDRI for your background color, you can then do the same in here. Just duplicate this setup and use another HDRI. I don't know, maybe like this forest, and now you have this forest but a different lighting setup. That's one of the tricks. And what I wanted to show though is we then go into the camera and we can say depth of field, enable it first, and then focus object. Which focus object? Of course, DOF, depth of field. And if you reduce this to 1, you can see it's blurry down there because this focus point is up in front. If we though put this all the way back here, now the back is in focus and the front is blurry. So you can dynamically decide where your limit is. You don't have to go in here and then say, of course, first I want to show my limits and then reduce the distance, or like change the distance depending on where your focus should be. You can just move this empty and you can see the focus point moves with it. Those are 2 tips. Let's go to the next one. Let me set this up first. Let me remove my limit. Put these 2 to the front first. Actually, we can keep it right there. Okay. Next tip. Let's see. Oh. Yeah. So yeah. So you could, for example, use this. For example, yeah. So if you, for example, put it in right there. Now this is in focus, and then you can say, you can pull up your timeline. Switch to the timeline right there. Go to the values. Insert keyframe. Put that all the way back there. And insert keyframe. Nope, hold on, we have to move it. Let's say 40. Move it back there. Insert keyframe, and then we play it. You can watch the render. It might be a little bit noisy, but we can probably still see it. Now, as you can see, this is blurry and this is not. Yeah, so I think sometimes you can see in some like artistic shots of like real life scenes, sometimes you have like a close-up shot of an object. It's blurry first and then it gets sharper and sharper. That's how you could use this depth of field empty, for example. If you're gonna, for example, go back here and say, oh, look at this sphere back there, it looks so nice and white. But then you want to say, oh, let's focus on this front object, this looks even wider. Yeah, you can use this dynamically to switch the focus point. This is basically the super easy camera setup. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is the render. How you can increase or decrease your render time, but not really lose out on that much detail or like unnoticeable amount of detail. I had that problem while I was rendering the second VJ loop because it was so dim. There was a lot of noise in the scene. So my trick to reduce, like usually when I wanted, like I tried like a few different settings, and when I wanted to render it with like very little noise, I had to use like 400 samplings, like render samplings, which like bumps up the amount of rendering time like by a lot. So what I did is, first of all, I combined my low sampling. I think I had like 128, and then reduce the resolution to 57%. And then you can render this, put it into, for example, if it's a animation, you can put it in After Effects and combine all the frames together. And then there's an effect for that. Or you can go into Photoshop if it's just a still image, and you can say, let me just quickly pull up an image. Let me switch to Photoshop so I can show you what I mean. Yep, there it is, Photoshop. You can then, let's open this up. Okay, if you want to make this bigger right now, the size is 1920 by 1920. If you want to make it bigger, you can say times 2. So now it's 3840. No, I'm too dumb to read that. 3840. You can do that, and Photoshop has a certain setting where it tries to preserve detail. And this way, if you compare, for example, a natively rendered 1920 by 1920 with a upscaled 1920 by 1920, it almost looks the same. So what I did for my VJ loop is just render it in 70% resolution scale, and then just scaled it up by, I think, 1.33 I scaled it up to 133.34%. So I have my 100% back, and it almost looks the same with way less render time. And also what I did was I reduced the render sampling and then just used denoising in Blender first. The denoiser in Blender is really good. The only problem with that is if you do animations, what the denoiser in Blender does, it just looks at one image. The problem is with that is that the noise always changes, which means that you have like blurry noise in there. Because usually a good animation denoiser looks at multiple frames to figure out what the best way of reducing that noise is. Blender, the the render node in here in the compositor, just looks at one frame, which means if the noise, because it changes in every frame, you can see the different noise reductions. What I did was I just used the denoise node and then went into After Effects, combined all my frames, and then applied another noise reduction to reduce like most of the noise. It's, if you look at it, you can still see the noise, but I think if I would have rendered it in high quality, it would have taken like 2 days. So I think that's a better way to do it if you're not looking for the perfect render or the most high quality ultra resolution render. So yeah, upscaling is one trick that I want to talk about. Then the effect of focal length. Let me make a new scene. This is another trick. The last trick I want to talk about, you can have multiple scenes. You can call that camera rig. There we go. Now this is your first scene. You can then say new scene. Copy settings, you can say full copy. I usually do. So it copies everything. You can just remove all of it. And now you have a second scene. You can call that focal length, for example. Oh, there's a T missing. Focal length. And then you basically have two Blender projects in one. So, for example, if I now import one of my busts right there. Oh, nope. Not open, but append. There we go. Takes a while because it's so dense. There we go. So now you can, for example, if you have a multiple, like a Blender project with multiple scenes, for example, like an animation. You have a fight scene where like they're fighting in a wide angle, and then you zoom in. You have another shot with a different point of view. You can, for example, use this to set up your scenes individually. What I usually do is I have my model, what I probably do today, once we're done with the explanation. What I do is, for example, if I want to give her hair, and I work with hair cards, I have my character in one scene, and then I can make a new scene and create my hair cards in there, and then just switch back to the first scene with the character and apply my hair cards to the character. So what is that? Oh, that's her teeth, because I pulled down the model. Oh, there we go. Okay, so what I wanted to show though is if we bring back the camera, what I probably will do at some point is I'm gonna set up my camera rig, and then you can say file, defaults, save startup file. Can you see that? Hold on. Oh yeah, you can. Okay. File, say default save startup file. So the next time you open up Blender, what you see in this scene right now is going to be your startup file, basically. What I wanted to show though is if you go back to this view and maybe go to solid view, we don't need the rendered version. Remove the rotation. Okay. Then we focus on her face. Let's go pretty close, maybe do something like that. Okay. We right now have a focal length of 50. We could probably reduce it even more, let's say 30. Let's go even closer. You can see what is happening. We don't even see her ears anymore. And then let's animate this. Let's bring this back to 0. Insert the keyframe right there. Also for the focal length. Let's then go to 100. Change this to 120. Oh, it's way closer. And insert keyframe and move this back. You can already see what is happening. Oh, we actually, it's actually perfect, because you can see the change with the face, like, doesn't change at all. So you can you can see what happens. That is also what happens when you make your own selfie and you have your like phone camera really close to you. That's usually why your nose in selfies looks bigger than it actually is. That is because the focal length of your camera lens is quite shallow, or like quite small. So you can see you don't get this really flat image where you can see all the features and not a lot of depth, and everything is like proportional. But you get something like this where like you can't even see the ears almost. So yeah, so if you're doing like a character or something, you have to keep in mind what your focal length is, not only in your references but also when you're working on it. You can not only change the focal length for cameras, you can also do it for your viewport view. So you can go into view and then change the focal length. If you put that to 120, it looks really flat. For example, you can see it in the grid. But it can be quite helpful if you know what the focal length of the reference shot is. You can adjust your viewport focal length to that, so you can work with that reference in the best way possible. I usually keep mine at 50. That's it's not as severe if you have 50 in your 50 focal length in your viewport. It doesn't stretch it that much. I just got adjusted to using the focal length of 50, so I just keep it at 50. You can of course change yours if you think you can work better with 85, for example. 85 is usually the focal length you use for portraits, but that's up to you. So those are the 5 tips I would have loved to know when I started Blender. Let's recap, and then I can do my recording. First of all, easy camera rig that is easy to set up. I mean, everybody can basically do this, which just automates the whole process of moving your camera and setting the focus point. Then next up, the background world background nodes. There we go. Having a different background. If you, for example, mute this, you can see the HDRI. We want to remove the HDRI, have our own background. So we just set this up, and you can see we have a different background color. Then next up, we have the upscaling of your render. If you want to decrease your render time, just, for example, render it in 75% resolution. I wouldn't go lower. I've tried 50%, but I think 50% is too much, because then if you upscale in Photoshop, for example, it also upscales the noise, which can look quite which doesn't look that good. It loses like too much detail or too much quality, so I would keep it at 75. You could maybe go to 66 or something, but I just leave it at 75. The effect of focal length. There we go. Let's look at that again. Oh, it's loading. Okay. Ooh. Yep, that's the effect of focal length. And one more. Oh yeah, using scenes to sort, or like to have multiple projects or multiple parts of a project in one scene. So I'm gonna do a quick video, gonna record that, and then we're gonna go over to the last topic, which is gonna be working on my current long-term project, which is, I can show you an image. Let me pull it up real quick. I am working on a character that is going to be released in a game in May. So it's still time to finish it. Okay, can I somehow open up my... Oh, of course I can just go to here, then pull it up in there. We're gonna recreate this lady right there. She's from Resident Evil Village, or Resident Evil 8. I've basically finished her face, so now what I'm working on is the hair. Next up, when that's done, that's probably not going to be done today, but I think we can get quite far. What I'm going to do today is create the hair cards, probably even start applying them to the head, and then next step would be create the clothes and also the head, and then we should work on the materials, stuff like the textures and her textures as well, like the skin and all that, texture painting. And once that's done, I guess we finish the character. So that's the long-term project that I'm gonna work on while there's like nothing else, I guess. So for example, usually on Monday and Tuesday I have a set topic. Monday is usually some explanation tutorial or something. Tuesday is more like a practical stuff, like tomorrow we're gonna do we're gonna create a satisfying animation, or at least we're gonna attempt to create one. Last week we did 2 VJ loops actually. in less than 3 hours, like 3 hours each. So this week's gonna be we're gonna attempt to create a satisfying animation, and the next 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, either I'm gonna work on this character, or if there's anything else I wanna talk about or like do, those 2 days are usually my rather free days where I leave my schedule open for anything. So I think everything's ready. We have our setup. I guess. No, I'm gonna use this file. Okay. So let me see if everything's ready, and then we can go. Let me remove this image. This is too distracting. Okay. Perfect. Okay. We can remove this Photoshop file. Okay, perfect. Okay. Record, and there we go. Let me drink something real quick, and then I'll start. Okay, I am ready. Okay. So today we're going to talk about something hopefully very helpful for a lot of people. Over the last 2 years of using Blender, I've collected a few tricks and tips and tricks that I want to share today that I would have loved to know back in the day, because they would have made my life in Blender a little way easier. You can see one of them already. I guess we can just go straight into it. I have 5 tips that I want to talk to you about, that it should make your working in Blender easier, and also one of them will increase or decrease the render time that you need for your renders. One of them is more about sorting your Blender file, and the first one that you can see right here is to make this camera way easier to use. As you can see right there, I made a very simple camera rig, and I'm going to explain to you what it does. And it is so easy to create yourself. You can even follow this, and it shouldn't be too hard. So first of all, what we need, as you can see right there, this camera has this blue line right there. So it's actually tracking this empty. Let us make a new scene so I can explain to you what happens there. We can actually keep the balls right there. So what we need for this very easy camera rig is, first of all, of course, a camera. Let's set that up correctly right there. So we have our camera. We need 2 more things, which is just 2 empties. So we put in a plane axis. I usually use plane axis empty. The benefit of those are that these lines meet in the middle, and this is the point we actually want to focus on. If you compare that to an empty, for example, a sphere, you can see this orange dot, the pivot point. You can see this center still, but if you then select something else, you can't see it anymore. So I usually use this empty with the, what is it called, the plane axis empty, just because it's the easiest and best, in my opinion, to use for this. So What we want to basically automate is this camera. If you, for example, like want to focus on this object, on this ball right there, you can see this is the camera. Oh, we have to switch the camera view. This is the camera view. If you then want to relocate your camera, like down there, for example, or over here, you then have to rotate your camera to actually like have your focus back on this object, like this sphere up there. So you would probably have to rotate it at some point, like get the object in the shot, and then you probably have to rotate your z-axis as well to the degree you want to get the shot you want. But you can make this easier by just saying, let's revert to the current, like the first state right there. And then what you can say is go in here to the camera, go to the camera settings on the right in the properties panel, and no, not to the camera, we need to switch to the constraints properties. In the constraint properties, you can constrain, like apply different constraints to the camera. What we want to use though is either the damped track or the track 2 constraint. What I usually use is the damped track constraint, and then we can use this pipette, click on there, and then you can just select it in your viewport. You can also select it from this list of all the objects in your scene, and then you have to switch from the track axis of Y to the negative Z. Now, as you can see, it looks like it looks forward again. And the best thing about it is now that we've applied the constraint, we can then, for example, either move this empty and the camera always tracks to this empty midpoint, or if we then want to say, okay, we want to focus on this first sphere again, we just put this over here and then move the camera. And as you can see, the focus always stays on the sphere. If you then want to say, okay, I don't want to put my focus on this sphere anymore, I want to move my focus, you can just move this empty. And as you can see down there in the viewport, let's see, this one should be in focus. You can see it automatically puts the focus on that sphere. So that's the first part. That's just way easier to set up than always having to rotate. And for example, going in here, rotating, like setting the rotation manually every single value. You can just move this around and have your focus point always where your empty is. One thing though, that's why I said you have the option between the damped track or track 2. The difference between the two is if we, for example, move this empty somewhere else, you can see it kind of rotates differently. For example, if you move it over here, let's compare that to a second camera. For example, we put that over here again, and we give this a track 2 constraint, apply this empty again. You can see it does the same, but if we now move this camera to the same spot, you can see it has a different rotation. So the track 2 constraint keeps all axes in mind. The damp track constraint just keeps the X and Y axis in mind. So if you then want to rotate this camera, you can still, on the Z axis, hitting rotation and then double Z, you can still rotate this camera, which is not an option for this one. If you want to do it with this one, you can't. Sometimes this one works better, sometimes the other one works better. It's just your choice and depending on the situation. So that's of course the first part of the camera rig, automating your camera. Let's keep the damped track and set up your scene. Maybe put the camera like somewhere over here, so we have all the objects in the scene. We want to focus on this sphere right there, and then the next part is going to be the depth of field. What I mean is, if we bring another plane axis into the scene, we can then say go to camera and go to the camera panel now, camera settings. You can see we have this depth of field option. What it does if we go to rendered, You can see now, right now, we have no depth of field. If we apply it, we can see, and then we can reduce the f-stop to make it a little bit more visible. Let's put that to 0.5. You can see back there, those spheres are way blurrier than the front sphere right there. That is because if we then go to viewport display, show the limit, we can see where the focus point is right now. You can see this is basically the empty that shows you where the focus point is. So if we move this empty in the distance, we adjust it by moving the distance. You can see now the empty moves backwards, back in the scene, maybe to this sphere, and you can see now the third sphere is in focus. The problem is moving your camera, and then maybe, for example, you want to say, okay, not this sphere should be in focus, the third one, but the last one. You would then have to go back to your camera and say show limits, of course, and then change the distance and kind of see if it fits in here, and then also like in here. And you can see we still have to move it further back, and this one should be quite good to put the last sphere in focus. You can make this easy on yourself by just using a second empty. We can then say, go to the camera settings and say focus object, select the second empty. And as you can see, the focus point snap back to this empty, meaning right now we have this front sphere in focus. Moving this empty back though, we can individually, like dynamically say where the focus point should be. As you can see right there, now this sphere is in focus. But then you want to say, okay, I want to have this front sphere back in focus. I just move it to the front, and this is way easier than going in here and saying, oh, I want to change the length or like the distance of the focus point and moving this distance value around. So this is just an easy way to make it make your life easier working with this camera. Saying, okay, let me move the focus point first. So now this is the center of the image, and then saying, okay, I want to have the center of the image also be the depth of field focus point, moving it down there. And now it's not only the center of the image, but also the focus point. You can, of course, if you want to like always have your focus point be your depth of field point, you can just say, okay, you go into the depth of field option and use the same empty you've used in your constraints tab in the depth of field tab as well. This way you always have this, like you only need one empty. But if you want to, for example, get this cool effect where you animate, for example, the depth of field, first focusing on this sphere over there. And then you can, if you look at this right there, this one is blurry. And then animating this, for example, you can animate the focus point moving forward up until the first sphere is in focus. So, in my opinion, sometimes I use just one empty. Sometimes I use two when I want to have some, like the focus point or the midpoint of an object be somewhere else than the depth of field. Then I use two. It's just up to you. That's why it's so like easy to use, because you can dynamically change everything. So this is the first tip, a camera that is way easier to use, a camera rig basically. The next thing I wanted to talk about is actually in this scene already applied. You can see it down here. We are in the world settings. If we look at this might look quite weird right now. Let me remove everything so it's easier to see. The base setup I had was just this right there. Actually, we have to disconnect it. So this is the base scene I had. What I wanted to do is apply an HDRI. If I do that, I have my Studio Small HDRI already in this node. So I just connect the color into the color. And as you can see now, we have the HDRI applied to our world. The only problem is I don't want to have the world be like my background. So as you can see right there, now if I move my camera, for example, you can get these, like you can see the image in the background. I want to have just a plain color as my background. So what you can do is duplicate this background. You can then use a shader, mix these two background shaders. And by using a input light path node and using the isCameraRay plug right there and plugging that into the factor, you can then see we've separated the lighting of the world from the color of the background or the world. We can show that if you, for example, switch this to, I don't know, blue, like a bright blue. You can see it's now bright blue. There's no lighting that's shining onto the spheres, which is bright blue. If we would only apply this background color to the world settings or to the world, you can see now the spheres are also blue. But I wanted to have an HDRI for the lighting, which looks like this. We want to have a different background. I would just use this mix shader, plugging in the lighting into the top socket and the color or the actual background that you can see into the bottom shader socket, connecting both, putting that into the world output, and then setting, like adding a input light path node using the camera ray option in the factor. You can have a different background than what is actually lighting the scene. How the camera ray setting works, or the camera ray socket, is basically if your camera sees an object, it's so for example, if the camera can see the spheres and the camera okay, I can probably show it easier if you, for example, bring in a plane, rotate that by 90 degrees, bring that over here. So isCameraRay basically tells you if the camera can see the object, it's a value of 1. If the camera cannot see it, it's a value of 0. So if the value in this factor, in the factor of this mix shader node is 1, this is applied. So because the camera can see the spheres, this background lighting is applied. But because the background doesn't really count as something that the camera can see, which then counts as 0, we can see a different, we can use this background node to see a different background as our background basically. What I want to show you is if I make a quick mirror, make a new shader, put that to roughness 0. I think that worked. Yep. Okay, so as you can see now, you can see the world in the background, like in this mirror. Let's put the specularity up. Yep. So you can see, now you can see the background. But you cannot see it if it's in the background. I mean, if there's no reflection. So right now you cannot see it. You were able to see it in the reflection because the camera basically saw the mirror, and the mirror reflected the background onto itself. This is why you were able to see the background. This is the second tip, basically separating the background color from the background lighting or the world lighting. Next tip is reducing your render times by a lot. What you can do is you can basically upscale your render. For example, if you have a scene that takes a lot of time to render, you want to have like very little noise, especially if it's like a dim lighting scene. You can reduce your resolution, your render resolution to 75%, which reduces the amount of render time you need. And you can also then, for example, save some render time there. What you can then also combine that with is a lower sampling count, and then combine that, a lower sampling count, with the lower resolution, with a render, denoise node that you can apply in the compositor. You can see right here, this you probably won't see. So this is the basic setup. The compositor is used for after you've done your render. The compositor is basically the post-production of the render that is applied after the render is done. So if I then say, okay, let's render this scene real quick, shouldn't take too long. Okay, it's almost done. And there we go. Let's switch to the render result. You can see we have a little noise down there. If you want to reduce that noise, you can use a filter denoise, put in image into image. And then to get more of these options, we have to go to this option right there, to this tab view layer. In there, you can tick denoising data. If we untick that, you can see we have less options right there. If we enable that, we have more. The denoise node has multiple sockets that you can plug by using the denoising data. So we can say denoising normal goes into normal, and denoising albedo goes into albedo, just to make the denoise filter as effective as it can be. And now there's like no noise anymore. So you can combine 3 techniques. First of all, you can reduce your render resolution and then upscale it later in, for example, Photoshop, or I think you can even do it in Blender. To reduce your render time, you can then also reduce the sampling amount and then apply a denoising filter to reduce your render time even more. So this way, this is basically what I usually do. If your scene takes a lot of time to render because you want to have like almost no noise, what I do is reduce my resolution, set the sampling as low as it can get, or as low as it's like bearable, and then I scale it up again later in Photoshop. Yeah, I think you can do it in Blender as well if you don't have Photoshop, for example, or you don't want to use Photoshop. I wouldn't go lower than 50% because if it's lower than 50%, you can really lose detail because the resolution it's just not big enough for the program to like recreate the detail that was there in the original resolution. So this is the third tip, basically just reducing the render time by a lot by changing these settings or like applying this technique. The next one is actually pretty funny. This applies more to people that work with characters or do stuff like, what do you call it? Likeness sculpting, for example. One thing I do sometimes, if we go to my focal length scene, you can see one of the characters I did like a while back. But then you see I've animated not only the location, but also in the camera. You can adjust the focal length. Right now it's set to 30. If we go to, let's put it to 100 first, then we go back to the render or the viewport. It's loading right now. You can see the character. Of course, just normal character. You can see it. Then, as you can see right now, the focal length is set to 120. If we play this animation, it's not only gonna push down the focal length to 30, but you're gonna see what happens. The proportions are warped all over the place, as you can see. So what I want to show you with this is to always keep in mind the focal length you have set for your camera, not only if you render your character, but also if you, for example, use references for your characters. You should always use references if you, for example, sculpt a face, just to keep all the details and all the muscles and all that. Like, it's usually better to have reference for that, because then you create more high quality sculpts, because you forget nothing and you can't keep all the details in your mind. So references is you should always use reference. But you have to keep in mind that some of the reference could have a lower focal length, which would warp how your character looks. For example, if you have an image that looks like this, you can really see how the proportions are. The ears, for example, in this one, this was a while back, the ears are way too big. You can see that by comparing, like usually the ears stop right where the eye, like the middle of the eye are, and they start at the bottom from the bottom of the nose. You can see that right there. But then if you have an image that has a focal length of 30, which is quite drastic, you can't even see the ears anymore. So always keep that in mind if you use reference and when you frame your character. And the last tip I have already shown you, which is different scenes. That is something you can use, for example, if you want to have multiple, like as it says, multiple scenes in your Blender file. For example, if you do stuff like, I use it sometimes for stuff like, if you switch back to my character, I start working on my character, the character's done, and now I want to apply some hair cards, for example, or some like hair textures, so she actually has some hair. What I usually do, I could just open up a new Blender file and create my hair cards in there, because you have to like create hair particles, brush them flat, so you can make a texture out of them that you can then apply to this character in the scene. What I usually just do is make a second scene, call the first one character, and call the second one, for example, hair cards. And in the second one, you can set up your Blender hair cards, and then just switch back to your character and work with these hair cards on your character. This way you can have basically multiple Blender projects in one, very easily like sorted. For example, in this one, I have one scene with a focal length comparison basically, and the other one is the camera rig. You can name them up here, and if you want to make a new one, what I usually do is, if you want to now, for example, make hair cards for this character, I just go in up here, say new scene, and usually I'm not going with new. What I usually do is full copy, so all the settings are copied. It makes a new scene, and there we go. Now we have focal length 0.001. You can call that hair cards, for example. There we go. And now you can remove this as well, all the teeth. And now you basically have a new scene where you can now set up your hair cards, for example. And then if you're done with your hair cards, you can just switch the scene and work with your character again. So this is just an easy way to not have too many objects in your like scene collection list, but still work in the same Blender file. This is at least I find it pretty helpful. If you see that your scene collection gets pretty full, it might be a good idea to just make multiple scenes, which lets you still work in the same Blender file, but you don't clog up your scene collection too much. So those are basically the 5 tips that I wish I knew when I started Blender. Hopefully they were helpful for you. Hopefully you learned something. If you like these tips, you can give this video a like. Tell me basically that you liked it. If you have some criticism, you can hit the dislike button. Tell me in the comments what you didn't like. Maybe you have a better technique for the camera, for example. Tell me that in the comments. If you want to see more, you can hit subscribe. And other than that, I hope you have a great day. And until next time, maybe, take care. Okay, hold on. Stop recording. Okay, perfect. So this is probably going to be a video for in 2 weeks. Yep. So I guess that's done. So we can go over to the character. I can show you what the current progress is, and then we can work on the hair cards. I can show you how I make my hair cards and what usually the usual practice is to make hair cards. If you don't know what hair cards are, they are basically just textures of hair that has an alpha applied to it, meaning usually if there's no alpha, you just have a plane with the hair on it, and then a background with a certain color. If you apply the alpha to it, the hair on that texture stays, but the background with that certain color is removed. So you can look through the hairs. That is usually how you make stuff like real-time characters, for example. Because particle hair is mostly used for not real-time characters, basically. Because textures are just easier to load than hair particles. Okay, let me open up my character. There we go. It's already open up. There we go. I think it's too big. Have to resize my image. Okay. You can already see it. Looks quite weird right now, I know. The most difficult part with working with a female character is sometimes if they have like a lot of makeup, you can't really see the character. Like if you want to make a what do you call it, a likeness sculpt, for example, that's what I attempted right here. I mean, I'm not like the pro in this, so there's probably like a lot you can improve, but if you're doing a likeness sculpt, in my opinion at least, it's harder to see the character if you're like close to it, if you're working with a female character that has a lot of makeup, than if you're, for example, working with a male character, just because usually male characters don't have makeup. Like don't have makeup on. But I think I came pretty close with this. There's probably stuff you can improve, but I think if we're done with this, with texturing and applying like giving her clothes and giving her eyelashes and all that, I think then it should look pretty good. Before I start, I just want to quickly check something. I had the problem with my previous... Okay, nice. Perfect. So, of course, if there are any questions, you can always ask me. Doesn't have to be with this character, can be everything except for private information. Like my credit card number or something. Yeah, but other than that, I will just work in this. What I did the last time was I just sculpted, sculpted some hair, so I have some, like, an idea how it would be set up once I apply my hair cards. But of course, now that that's done, I will actually create the hair cards and then use curves to attach my hair cards to the hair. Usually I think I did 2 characters so far where I used hair cards, meaning I have experience with 2 characters where I created hair cards, and I can show you one of them. I think one of them looks pretty cool. I think the one I show you now is the first one I ever created using hair cards. I did a training first, or like a exercise first before I did that character, but this is the first finished character that I did where I used this hair card technique. Let's see. Oh my god, it's so old. Okay, so this is the most recent one I can show you. Let me pull it up real quick. Or let's use this one. Character 2. Nope, not this one. This is bald. That's not the one. Nope. That's another one. Nope. Oh, it's actually like quite a while back. Nope. Is it really that long ago? Oh, it is. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to show you the render, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like if you can actually see the solid view. So let me go in here and show you the render. PNG. And this is also a character I haven't applied post-production to, I think. So it looks like not as good as I could probably make it now. That's what I like. Okay. Yeah. So as you can see right there, hair cards are a good way of making the hair of your character look like real. There are, I would say, like 3 ways you can make like realistic looking hair in Blender. This is one of them, where you use textures, hair cards. 2 of these methods use hair cards. One of them uses hair cards and then like shapes them, like in these rows, for example, using curves. You can attach these textures to curves and then they deform with the curve. Or what you can also do is use hair particles right here. And then the good thing with hair particles is you can brush them, but hair particles are also basically curves. So if you then say, for example, if you have your hair card right here, of course it should be thinner right there. To deform, of course, it needs some cuts in the middle so it can actually deform. And then you can say, if you use hair particles, there's a specific modifier for that, which is particle instance. Which object has the particles you wanna attach the texture to. You can then say object female human base mesh. And then, as you can see, you select the particle system, and then the texture is basically attached to every single hair particle. It gets duplicated to every single hair particle, and this way you can basically brush the hair texture onto the character. So there are multiple different ways you can do it. My favorite method, I would say, is just using curves, just because the problem with hair particles is that they have a kind of weird rotation. You can't see the rotation if you just look at the hair particles, just because they're like just a path. So they're not, they don't have a geometry, so you can see it. But if you apply the texture to that hair particle, they sometimes do not, like, what you want with the character is for the hair cards to be attached to the character like this, because then you'll see like the texture like from this angle, and most of the surface will be covered from the texture. But if the texture is rotated this way and you look from the side, there's almost no texture you can see, which makes the hair look like really thin. So, and also like it sticks out from the side. So the problem with hair particles is sometimes if they're, for example, over here, and you want to form them like that, sometimes the rotation is set so it's not like that, but it's like that. And I haven't really found a way yet to actually change the rotation of the hair. So sometimes it's kind of annoying to work with hair particles, but I think it's a faster way of working with hair textures, like attaching hair texture to your characters. So it's like a kind of like give or take which one you think it's easier or better to use or more effective. There's one more you can do, of course. You can not only use the hair particles for guidance for your hair textures, but you can also just use hair particles for your actual hair. For example, if you go in here and make a new UV sphere. Oh, that's quite big. Oh, of course, what I wanted to show you is the solid view. If we, for example, look at this, you can see that's the solid view. Those are all the texture planes basically that I put onto this character. they all have a certain hair texture. You basically not only have one, because the base layer should be like a really full hair texture to cover the main, like to cover the skin, so you're not looking like at the bald head once you've applied your textures, but you're actually looking at the hair. So to keep it, make it look thin, I mean look thick actually, you use a base layer of really like dense hair, and then you can use smaller hairs to get these small strands into the hair, or onto the head, basically, to give it more detail. The only problem I had with this character is that I applied so many textures to it that it wasn't really real time anymore. So I'll try to keep the amount of hair textures I have to apply or like put on the character quite low. So I have to make the strands in my second scene for my hair cards bigger, and also just put in more hairs onto each individual hair texture. Of course, if you see, okay, the texture is not dense enough, you can always just go to your scene and render it again with more hair. But I think you can, if you've never worked with it, the best way to show you what I mean is just to make hair cards. So that's what we're gonna do today. Let's save that real quick, and let me actually pull up a, do I have a, oh there it is, okay. Oh, it's actually already there, so we can go back to the viewport. Perfect. Looks kind of weird right now. But I think the most, like the biggest drawback with this character is because the head is so big, you can't really see like half of her face, or like the top half of her face. So I try to improvise a little bit, which kind of probably impacted her likeness. But I'm not gonna adjust it even like more. I'll just leave it how it is and work with that. As long as you can kind of see the character, I think it works. So onto the hair cards. Just saving real quick, just to be completely 100% safe. And then we can switch to my second scene. Let's call that character. And we have to make a new scene. Full copy, I would say. And then we can call that hair cards. So let's remove this character because we don't need it in this scene. We can remove all the lights and the camera as well. We can then bring this the cursor back to the world origin, and we can also remove the eye. Wait, where's the eye? Eye is just gone, I guess. Okay. That was the first version of the hair. We don't need that. Head layout, we also have that. We don't need that. We just need a blank scene. So, what we need first is a camera. Oh, let me adjust that camera first. Let's go to top view because we're gonna look at it from the top. And then we make a camera, so the camera looks like from the top, right there. There we go. And then we need multiple small planes. What we have to do first, though, is remove the perspective from this camera. What I mean is, of course, the texture shouldn't have perspective on it already. So we have to switch the camera from perspective to orthographic. You can't see a big change yet, but I can show you what it does in this screen. You can see the render right there. If I switch that to orthographic, now it's basically like the camera has a focal length of, I guess, infinity. So it tries to, okay, let me make a new camera real quick, and then I can show you what it does. You can see right now it has some perspective. It's on 50 focal length. If we put that to orthographic and maybe make the frame a little bit smaller. Okay. Maybe even a little bit smaller. Okay, and then switch back to perspective. Okay, you can't really... Okay, so I can probably show it better in the viewport if we focus on this on her face. So I can switch in your viewport. You can also switch between orthographic and perspective view. You can do that by hitting the 5 button on your numpad. And if I do that, you can see now everything's completely flat. As you can see right there, the grid has no perspective anymore. And everything is as flat as it can be, basically orthographic. If I switch back, you can see everything has perspective again. I use that to make the texture for the hair cards as flat as it can be, because it is a texture and it should be as flat as it could be. So let me go into the camera, and we need multiple planes. We don't need them to be quadratic or like as wide as they are high, I guess. We're gonna make them like, how many do we need? I would say we need 3. Yeah, 3 should be good. So we can see it right there. We have our first plane. Let's switch back to solid view so we'd see it easier. And we need 3. So what we could do is make this a little bit thinner, move it over to the edge, because we have, so what we're going to do is lay out the hair coming from this plane all the way to the bottom. So we have like long hair we can use then. What we're going to do is just move this over, duplicate the plane. So we have one in the middle, and then duplicate it again. So we have one on the right side. We can then move it more to the center so they're all in the frame. What do you mean with scale grab? Do you mean... Oh. You mean selecting everything and then... No, hold on. Yeah, can you elaborate on that? I'm not quite sure what you mean. So we now have our 3 planes. We can probably make them a little bit thinner individually. Like that. Okay, perfect. So now to make it look like a little bit better, you probably won't see it in the character itself because she was wearing a hat, but I'm gonna do it anyway. You can rotate this a little bit on the x-axis, so they're not all starting from the same position on the texture. Basically, I can show you what it does in a few seconds. I usually put in like 45 degrees or even like 30. Okay. Now we have our 3 planes for the hair particles. What we can do then, we just go into particle properties and put in a hair particle. That's the first one, and you can already see it. It's flat as you would expect. What we have to do first is change the number. Let's put that down, maybe to 100. Okay. Looks pretty good. We don't need to care about the render for now. We need children, but I think the first thing we should adjust is the layout. What we want to have is these hairs should be flat, like on the y-axis basically. So we switch to the particle edit, use the brush tool, and then we can brush the hair down. I don't know why they get shorter. I'm not quite sure why they do that. So they're quite short now, but we can adjust that in just a second. What I wanted to show you is now you can see we have multiple roots of hair coming from multiple positions. Basically, they're not only coming from, like, there are two options you could do, like you could use to create these hair particles. You can either rotate this plane by 90 degrees, so they're like vertical, and then they're just going all the way over there, or you could just rotate them by 30 degrees. So the benefit with that is that the roots are not all starting from the same spot. If you would rotate this plane by 90 degrees so that it's vertical, all the roots would start from the same spot, which can look less realistic. What we can do to make them longer is just go into length and then say grow, and zip, there they are. And we have some longer strands. Let's see if they're still in frame. Let's adjust them some more. First layer is just the cover layer. Okay. Perfect. When scale, grab and rotate, I have to press X, Y, and Z to point the object we want, but it's a little annoying when grab the object just a little. So you mean when you when you want to move the object by just a little? I'm not quite sure what you mean, but I think so. If I understand you correctly, if you want to just move stuff like very incrementally, like small by small margin, you can either like press G and then hold Shift to move it like very, very little, and then if you release it, you move it like really a lot. Or do you mean when you, I think what you mean is when you have the cube and you want to move it on like a little on the Y, like just a small amount on the Y, and then also a little bit on the X axis. So something like that, basically. You can also, what you can do is combine axes. Oh. Okay, Blender file, just as we were talking about it today. My Blender file just crashed. Not a big deal, because it's recover. Oh, last session. Hold on, I've never used this. Oh. Oh, wait, what? That's not my last session? Okay. Yeah, you can combine axes. Once I'm in Blender again, I can show you what I mean. There it is. Now I have to adjust the size again. Oh no. Okay, there we go. Okay. So, oh, hold on. It's not perfect. Wait, what is going on? There we go. Okay. So, can I adjust my chat box a little bit? Oh no. There we go. Okay, this should work. Yeah, looks good. Okay, now moving just by a small amount. What you can do is, if you, for example, have a cube and you want to move this cube on the Y and X axis, for example, you can exclude a axis. So usually when you just press G, you move it on all axes or on the view plane of the current viewport. So in all directions. If you want to say, okay, I want to move this cube on the Y and X axis, but not the Z axis, so it's not moving upwards, you can say G, Shift, Z, and this way you only move on the Y and X axis, and you can move the object on both axes at once. You don't have to press X, move it over here, and then Y, GY, and move it over there. You can press G, Shift, and Z, and now you move it on everything except the Z axis. If you want to move it on the X and Z axis, you press G, Shift, Y, and there we go. And the last option, G, Shift, and X, we move it on everything except the X axis, if that's what you mean. Okay, I lost my hair particles, but that's not too bad. Shouldn't take too long to set up. Let's call that character. Make a new scene, full copy, and call it GER cards. Okay. Let me remove everything that I don't need. Perfect. So I write here rough, remove everything, we don't need it, and we start over. Let's bring the world origin back to, the cursor back to the world origin. And what we need is first a camera looking from the top. I'm going to speed run this because I've already shown what I wanted to do. So orthographic, bring in a plane. Perfect. And there we go. Make them a little bit smaller. Perfect. Okay. Now rotate them by, let's say 30 degrees. Oh, not this way. Rotate them on the x-axis by, let's say 45. No, let's say 30. Okay, almost back to what we had before. Apply a vertical setting here, and then go to, let's put that number to the only problem, like the downside to using a tilted or rotated plane is with vertical planes, the hair is always going straight, like on the y-axis, which is what we want. With this technique, we have to brush them down, which disables the option to change the number of hairs and also like the seed and hair length and segments. We can adjust everything basically except the segments and the number. I mean, we could just add more. So I guess the only way we'd have to keep in mind is the segments. We could probably bump that up to, I would say 8 should be enough. Let's say 10. we're being generous. Render, put that to don't show the emitter. Steps to 10. And in the viewport, we only need like 5. Children aren't important right now. Let's go to the number and put that to, let's say 100 for now. We can still add more if we want or need. Then we go to particle edit and brush them down. I want to try something though. If we go to tools, we have options. We can say preserve root position, which means if we brush them and we have this not enabled, I just show you what it does. Whoop. Now they're somewhere else. We removed them from their original root position. If we take the preserve strand option, you can see now they keep, like, they're not, like, they don't keep their length. Basically, this might even be better for what I'm doing right now, because then we can more easily just change the length more dynamically and just work in this. What I see right now is that the segments are quite low, but I think that's not a problem in the end. Okay, let's see. They should be quite straight down. What we want to change though is the length. So what we can just do is go in here, go to orthographic view in the viewport and brush them down. So they reach all the way to the bottom. Something like that. Maybe a little bit less so we can adjust the settings some more. Yeah, something like that should be good. Okay, so then if we would use this texture, we would say we want to have a plane that only takes this texture, like only displays that texture, and then applying stuff like the hair texture, hair color, and hair alpha will only leave you with, let me remove this one as well, only with this one basically. I'm still going to adjust these settings some more, so we have beta hair cards. They're not done yet. We want to give them some more style so they look more realistic, but that's the basic setup. You can see some waves in there. We can probably adjust them, but you can't see them in the top view anyway, so we don't really have to care about them. Except for I don't like them, so I'll try to fix them. That's probably because the resolution is so low that it like interprets this low resolution that way, which leaves us with these weird waves. But yeah, I think it doesn't look too bad, so we'll just leave it like that. Okay, let's go into the options. What we can say is, first of all, what do we have here? Of course, if you want to change these settings afterwards, after you've brushed your hair, you can just delete the hair. Then I think it like resets the position, which is not really what I want, so I'll not do that. What I want to do though is go to children. Let's switch this to rendered view so we actually see what it looks like in rendered view. Okay, let's okay. Perfect. So what I wanted to do is add some children first. We could probably use interpolated. Yeah, for this one at least. And we have way more children. You can see them in the rendered view as well. We can't even see through the amount of hair right now, which is a good thing, because this is just the hair layer that should cover up like the scalp basically. So it's quite good to have that many hair strands. We could probably reduce it a little bit though. So let's see what 5 looks like. Let's see what 0 looks like. So now, as you can see, we can see through, which is not what we want. So we put that back to something like 5 for now. We can check if you can still see through the hair by just going to the world shader and apply the trick I've used before. Go to world, set this. We don't even need an HDRI. What we need though is go to, of course, go in here, duplicate this background, say shader, mix shader, then background into background, using a light path, setting the camera ray into the factor. We can then just change this background color to something really sharp, like really contrasty, like magenta or pink, I guess. And now you can see whether or not you can see through the hair, because this is the cover layer. We want to have more, the dense layer basically. We want to have more hair, so we adjust it maybe to 10 should be good. Oh, 10 is still not enough. It looked like it was enough with the gray background, but we have to add even more. Actually, so what I'm thinking about is, of course, if you can see through the hair textures, that makes it look more realistic, because hair isn't just two-dimensional. You have basically multiple layers of hair, which is what we try to emulate using different hair strand textures. Basically have multiple layers. The base layer is just the cover-up layer with the most hair. Then we have less hair that is a little bit more wavy and rougher. And then we have one more layer, at least for this character, maybe one more, let's see, that implements stuff like small strands that just, like small flying strands that just, you can see in images, for example. If you go back to the reference we had, nope, this one, right here. So what you would have is, on the scalp, you would have the base layer, so you can't see the scalp anymore, like the skin. Then you have these big strands right there. You can still, like, as you can see right there, you can kind of see through them. And then you would have these small hairs that you can see right there, these individual strands that you would then implement in the end, just to give it a little bit more detail and a little bit more depth. We're still in the base layer, so we will adjust this. I'm probably not going to add more hairs to fill out the whole, like make it not see-through. What I want to do though is not like reduce the amount of tapering, I think you call it, that the hair has right now. So I want them to be almost as thick in the end as there are on the, like at their roots. So we can go to where is it? Hair shape. First of all, what we can do is change the strand shape to something more like negative 0.5. This will make the base. This basically adjusts the tapering gradient basically. So 0.5, what that does is the thickness of the root stays for longer before it tapers off. So as you can see, if I put that to 0, you can see right here it starts to get thinner. If I put that to negative 0.5, you can see it's just a little bit thicker even up to the end. We then can change, for example, the tip size, maybe to something like 0.25. This looks quite good. We have a little bit of like a gradient of like thickness, but it still looks quite good. Maybe we can put it to 0.3. 0.3 should be enough. Okay. Next up, yeah, I think this, we could probably make this a little bit more realistic. Right now they're just straight hair textures, or hair, like it's just straight hair basically, almost no hair except for in the advertisements. They have like this perfect flowing, like straight hair that just falls down. So what we can do is we can go into stuff like clumping, for example. What that does is right there, you can see it better in this view. It basically, like the children particles all clump together to the parent particle, and they do that not on the root but on the end. So if we look at that, if we reduce the clumping, you can see they go further apart. And if we go to clumping 1, you can see now they all go together. If you can see, it not only goes from 0 to 1, but it actually goes from -1 to 1. That is because we can also say they should all clump up at the root, if you want that for some reason. I've never used that before, but if you want that, then the option is there for you. We could probably keep that at 0, because this should be quite filling, so we don't want to reduce the amount of like thickness or density it has, even if we change that. Yeah, okay, so it gets quite thin in the end, so we'll leave it at 0. The shape basically gives it a little bit of a bow, so if we apply that, what you can see is, so usually it's just like a triangle, like this is the parent particle and then the children particle go to the tip. But if you apply a shape, it's not like a straight line, it's just like a like a bow. Like this is the adjustment you can make. Usually like the standard is like this, the bow is then like something like this, like a rounded triangle basically. We don't need shape, so we then put this to 0. Oh, it actually helps. Hold on. Of course, we have to put that to 0. Now it doesn't help anymore. Okay. What I want to change though is roughness. We have multiple options to make these hairs more unique. Right now they're all the same, basically like clones. We can then go to uniformity, for example, and bump that up. And now they're not uniform anymore. You can't see it that well, but the viewport display is at 5. What if you put that to 10? Doesn't really change anything. But you can see a small change in the structure. Because it's so thick you can't really see it that well. But if we adjust some more stuff, for example, like we can put that to 10 first. And then the size, if we reduce the size, you will probably see it. Smaller. And there we go. They all become unique. As you can see right there. They become more like hay or something rather than like actual hair. So this is probably too, as you can see right here, this is too wild. So I'll probably change the size to something bigger. But as you can see, this just gives it a little bit more realism, or makes it look more natural, because like the hair isn't like uniformly going in the same direction. They have a general direction they all go in, or a general flow. As you can see right here, for example, this lock right there, or this curl, you can see they all go in the same direction. But individually, if you see closer, there are some hairs that go like in this direction, some that follow the flow correctly. So just adding a little bit of noise or ununiformity, I would say, I guess you would call it, helps sell that realism or natural look. We could probably put that to 0.5. The size basically, so what the uniformity does is basically it applies a noise texture to the hair, and it basically works like a displacement modifier. Everywhere where there is black, it pushes the hair down, and everywhere where it's white, it pushes the hair up. And the bigger the size, the smaller the changes, and the smaller the size, the bigger this changes. Did I say that correctly? If the texture is small, you see more bumps. If the texture is bigger, you see less bumps, basically. Okay. Perfect. Let's see, let's look a little bit closer. You can now see they all go in a general same direction, but you can see some of them like they intersect each other, create this like holistic strand, but they all have their own direction they go to. We can still customize it some more. For example, we can change the endpoint. What that does is basically the opposite of clumping. If we put that to 1, you can see it really well. Oh, also, clumping, like first clumping will be applied, which means everything goes into the same tip of the parent, basically. But then if we apply uniformity or like reduce the uniformity, you can see now they're all scattered all over the place, because the uniformity or the change in uniformity overrides the clumping. If we put that to, let's keep in mind 0.325, now they're all straight. If we then change the endpoint, they all go apart again. And what you can change also with the shape, you can decide. Hold on. Okay, you can't really see it. So what it basically does is, if you have hair going together, the endpoint option basically splits them apart at the end. So if you have hair that like goes together, or like this, in the end it just goes apart again. That's basically what it does. So we can probably, we don't need endpoint, so we can just leave it at 0. Clump, we don't need that. And put the uniformity back to 0.325. Okay, what we want to change though is the randomness. We want to put in some more randomness. It kind of works like the uniformity. It basically is, it's kind of the same. I guess the way it is applied to the hair is different. You can see it gets a little bit wilder. You kind of have to play around with it. If we then, oh, of course, the special thing about the randomness is you can now see like we have more like small hairs extending the main, or like deviating from the main flow. You can then adjust the threshold to determine how many, like the percentage of hair strands that are like deviating from the flow. If you put that threshold to 1, 100% of all the hairs will not be affected by the randomness. If you put that to 0.5, half of all the hair will be affected by the randomness. I usually keep it at either 0.5 or something like 0.75. This is the base layer. We don't really see it in the end anyway, so we can keep it pretty low. This looks quite well. Then now you can see some of these hairs deviate from the main flow, which just makes it look like a little bit like more realistic. We can also apply a kink, but that's not what we want for these hairs. Kink is stuff like curls or waves, braids and all that. We could apply that to the hair, but that's more reserved for if you actually use the particle hair for styling your hair of your character. This is basically a template of how the hair particles will move. Stuff like curl, for example, give you this wave. You can change the amplitude to get some bigger curls. You can also, like, braid looks kind of weird. Oh, actually, you can even see it. Oh, can you see it? Ah, there it is. It forms these braids. We don't need the kink though, so we just move it, bring it back to nothing. And I think that's the base layer set up. We should probably move it a little bit more to the center because it's quite close to the edge. But I think now everything is still in the frame. So that's the base layer. Now we can make the second layer. The base layer is basically just on the sculpt, so you can't see it anymore, as I said before. So next up we have these smaller, what do you call them, strands. That's what we're gonna do now. These strands are usually a little bit thinner, as you can see right there, so we're gonna make them thinner in here as well. Maybe something like that. Maybe a little bit less, like that. Okay. We make a new particle setting, set that to hair, and there we go. Let's save that before it crashes on us again. Yep. Okay. I'm gonna drink something real quick and then we will continue. Always important to hydrate. So one reason I changed, or the main reason I changed my streaming software from Streamlabs to OBS was because my like Streamlabs would just tell me, hey, you're live. Psych, you're not. It would basically just tell me I am live, but it like internally crashes or something, and then I'm actually not live, and then I would realize it in the end, which it's quite annoying. So I switched to OBS, which so far hasn't betrayed me yet. So I'm quite happy with that. That's why I'm using OBS now. And I think overall OBS is just a more, I wouldn't say professional, but more robust platform, less buggy and easier to work with. What I want to do with this is I think I'm also going to scale this down to make the... should I? I guess we could do that later. No. Let's make it a little bit thinner, like that. Okay. So, what that does is basically, if you look at from the top, you can see the roots are like scattered around on this plane. If you make it smaller, they have a smaller scatter surface, I guess, which can work better with these thinner and smaller hair strands. Let's put that down to maybe 150. Yeah, I think that's good. Hair length can stay the same. We're gonna adjust it using the brush. Do we need 150? Yeah, I think it's better to have... Actually, we could probably use... No, for this hair, I think it's better to just use... Or... I'm torn. Let's say 10. Of course, there aren't a lot now, but we're gonna use those to, and then apply children to adjust the shape. We can now more individually adjust the parents, which will dictate how the children react or will form. So we can go into particle edit and preserve strand is still off. Perfect. Oh, actually path steps. Let's put that to 10 is probably too much. Let's put that to 5. Now it's way smoother. Perfect. Fold that down there. Now it shouldn't be as wavy as it was before. Okay. make sure it reaches the end. Like that, okay. Perfect. Let me adjust the waviness. It's too wavy for me. Oh, it's not working. Come on, don't be mean to me. We could probably just adjust it like that. That should work as well. Okay, it's still, oh, there's some waviness going on in there. Okay. Go to object mode. You can see just these small hairs. And then we use interpolation. We need more, so we put that to 50, I guess. 50 is probably still not enough. Let's put that to 75. We can still adjust it in the end, so we'll work with this for now. Let's go back to particle edit and adjust these individual hairs. You can switch between the display mode. These curves basically have multiple points of like vertices basically. We can see all of them like that, and then we can select one single strand and adjust it individually. And as you can see, now we only adjust one of these hair strands. I want to give these some more drastic deviation from the main flow basically, some more structure, some more randomness, which will affect the children as well. Like that, okay. Not too many though, because if you look at the strands in here, they're quite straight. So just small changes should work best for this character. We're probably going to use 4 strands in the end, but we're going to see how it looks with just 3. I don't want to spend too much time on here, because it can be quite finicky and annoying if you spend too much time on the details. So I kind of want to keep this quite low res, if you want to call it that. And as you can see, we have some changes. Probably the best way would be to use simple hair, which looks kind of weird. Oh, we have to bump up the strand steps to 10. Okay. Oh, okay, now it looks better. Maybe we can bring back the interpolation. I think simple looks better. Now we can see it looks wilder even from the beginning. What we can do though is, because it's quite thin right now, what we're going to do first is change the display amount to even more. What does 100 look like? What we can also change is, of course, to give this tip some more thickness, is going here into the hair shape, change that to -0.5. Also tip, check that at 0.25. Oh, it's quite small. We can remove close tip. Close tip basically ensures that the tip is always 0. Hair particles are usually just like tubes, and if close tip is enabled, the tubes end in like a sharp like tip basically. If we unclick that, the tube stays like open basically. We can probably increase the size even more, maybe 0.5. That's quite big, but what we can do is we can change the length. There, we can put that, for example, to 0.75. What that does is similar to the roughness value. Okay, hold on. 0.75. So now it's shorter, but then you can say it's threshold only 0.7 no, only 25% of the mane of all the hair should be affected by the length. Now 25% of the hair is shorter, the rest is just as long as the other, like the 70% of the hair is just as long as it was before. What we can then adjust is stuff like the size, so the radius, so the children are closer to the parents, like concentrate it more so it looks more like a strand, like that. Or what we have to also adjust is we don't want to see the emitter, the plane basically, so remove that. There we go. Show emitter off in the render as well. There we go. This is basically all you will see when you apply it as a texture, once we apply it as a texture. Not the magenta. Look, the magenta is just transparent. Okay. This looks quite good already, but I think we can probably adjust this shape a little bit, because you can see it's quite sharp, like a sharp tip in the end. Maybe we can change the rough, no, not the roughness. There's the setting, which is roundness. Hold on. Did it really do? Oh no, roundness in the, where is it? Radius, basically. So simple children hair particles work like you have a parent particle, and then the simple particles are in a radius around, like are emitted in a radius around that parent particle. Interpolated hair particles are just scattered all over the emitter plane, and they orient, or they take over the shape of the parent hair from the closest parent hair to them. So they're just scattered all over the shape, or the surface, and the closest parent that is, like the parent that is closest to the individual hair will be the one that dictates what the children particle looks like, basically. With the simple children, they will always have a set parent which they spawn around or emit around, and which they will follow in their shape. So I want to make this a little bit rounder. Let's see if we can change that in here. I think there was like a roundness setting. If not, we can just like cut some of those close, like shorter. Radius is not the one. Size. What is size again? Let's see. Okay, size just is nothing. Okay, I guess we'll not use size then. Yeah, I guess we just use the brush. And what we can do is use the length. We can just say cut, and then select all of them, zip, and cut them to a nice sharp strand like that. Let's see if that looks good. Looks quite rigid. We can probably this would probably be solved with more parents. What if we put it back to interpolated? Looks not better. Yeah, we could, let's see if we can play around with these settings. We could maybe adjust it a little bit more. 200 children, so it's thicker. Maybe not 200, maybe 150. Okay, this should be quite good. Maybe change the length. Oh, of course, no, 0.75, the threshold. Maybe something more like that. We can then say clumping. Okay. I think that gets us closer to what we want. This is still flat in the end. I think we can change that. Yeah, it's a little bit rounder now. We probably have to adjust the particles some more. So going in here, just adjusting them individually, probably the best way. Oh, not cutting them, brushing them over. Okay, also in here, bringing them closer together, probably the best way to do it. Okay, this side as well. Something like that. And one more. This should probably look better. Hold on. I think they're now too close. I want to get this sharp ending. The only problem is I mean, we can probably work with this. Let's adjust it a little bit more. Let's say we want to see the children actually, so we can adjust it a little bit more like detailed, so we can actually see what the children look like in the end. We'd have to go back to solid view to see it. Okay. Oh, that's probably why it looks so flat. There we go. We can probably make this a little bit thinner. Just selecting these ones. And then moving them a little bit closer together will probably do the job, just how we want it to be. Okay. That looks quite good. This is a weird weird shape right there. Can we adjust that? Okay, perfect. I think that looks quite okay. Doesn't look too bad. Okay. Object mode. Yeah. We have this hole in the middle. I guess we could change the threshold. Yeah, that works. We could probably adjust one of these hair strands a little bit more, and then it should be done. Maybe two, and then we push them more together. This should do the job. Okay. Perfecto. Also, I do a quick sketch every day. Maybe you've seen them before, maybe not. You can see them on my Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. And I do a making of, basically, or a tutorial, or just talking about what my intention was, what I was thinking about, what I wanted to achieve with this quick sketch on one of my YouTube channels. I have three, basically. I have one, this one right here, if you're watching this on YouTube, where I just upload my live streams, basically only my live streams. So my VODs are on this channel. Then I have a channel, I have a channel where I upload my edited content, my more like highly edited content, like these tutorials that then go up twice a week, like one tutorial every week and one like fun video, something like making a VJ loop in 3 hours, or recreating one of my 2-year-old Blender projects that will come out tomorrow. And then I have a third one, which isn't linked yet in any of my descriptions. It's just called Noggy Today. I basically now have a Noggy Now, Noggy, and Noggy Today, where I post daily all my quick sketches with a small commentary talking about what I was thinking about and all that. and also some small tips like how you can make a very simple, but also like just a very simple cloth shader or fabric shader with just one node, one texture node, and a few adjustments using the mapping node and texture coordinate to create a very like absolutely like everybody can do this, even if you've never used nodes before, like a fabric shader. That's stuff that you upload there as well. So one channel is more for stuff like highly edited videos. One is more for like short, lower quality videos that I think don't belong on the other channel, on the other video channel. Yeah, I was trying to separate those just because I think if you, for example, like or if somebody likes my edited videos, they probably don't want to be like spammed by my daily sketches. So I just upload them on my second channel. Yeah. Okay, what do we have to keep in mind with these strands is that they have to be quite vertical, because if we apply the texture to a plane, we have to keep in mind that this plane is like a cube, or like just a plane basically. And if it's diagonal, it can be quite tricky to set that up. So we have to keep that in mind. What I want to change is I want to make the strand a little bit thinner, because this is quite thin. So we'll go back to particle edit. Shouldn't take too long, and then we can go the detailed hair texture. Move that a little bit over. Something like that, okay. Yeah, I think that looks quite good. Looks quite okay. I think that looks okay. What I want to change though is the thickness. That's quite thick. We don't need that many children, so we can go back to the display amount. Maybe 100 should be enough. Maybe even 75. 75 looks pretty good. We still have some holes, so we can create some depth, because they're not too, like you can see through the individual textures, but they're also not too thin that you can almost not see them. My problem with the previous ones, where I had to add so many more hair particles or hair textures, was that I made these hair textures too thin, and I didn't want to change the texture itself, so I just added more planes or more textures to the character. Let's see, what happens if we scale it down? Oh, we could even use it like that, maybe. I think that looks pretty good as well. Okay, save that. And on to the last one. This one can be quite thin as well, like that. So we go from really thick to quite thin, quite small, and then even smaller for these small strands that we're going to use or add in the end. So another particle setting, put that to here, and there we go. Save that just to be sure. Oh my god, it's already, oh my god, time flew by. Like last time I was looking, it was like an hour earlier. So I'm probably gonna end the stream in 3 to 5 minutes. So of course, if you're new here and you want to see more, either check out my videos or any of my socials, or just subscribe to this channel if you want to see more live streams, maybe ask me some questions, just want to hang out, just want to talk. I'm always open to anything. Well, let's make these also you probably won't see it, but I'm just gonna do it a little bit thinner as well. Okay, so we probably just need like 3 strands. That should be enough. Let's brush them down. Select all of them, or just switch to this one. Path step 5 and zip, zip. Oh no. Tries to resist again. There's no resistance where I live. Oh. They're quite close together. We can adjust that though. We can just select this one. Preserve root strand. Nope. And move it over. This one as well. And there we go. Okay. Now we can adjust them some more. Perfect. They should be they shouldn't have a flow necessarily. Like they shouldn't be the same, like going to the same direction. So they can be intersecting, for example, going in here and putting this over there in the end, like that maybe. This should be okay. Then this one can maybe go more out in the beginning and then more over here. This could like end a little bit shorter. Those are just small, what you would call them, like deviants that are going to be added in the end. They're not going to be a lot, but they will add more detail and also more realism, because you will always have these small hairs that just deviate from the main scalp of hair, and adding those will really help sell that the hair looks real. I mean, we're probably not going to go for full realism, but I don't know why it does that. Why, like if you want to push it down, it just goes forward. I guess we'll just leave it be. It doesn't want to be moved, so we'll not we'll not try to. If we go back to object mode, we have to adjust the. Oh no! Oh no! We forgot to change the segments. What happens if we go to render? Can we steps put that to 10, I guess? Do the same for the viewport. Does that work? I mean, it's smoother, but I don't know if that really is as smooth as 10 would be. I guess it looks like it is. But of course you can't really see them. We want to make them thicker. There still should be individual hair strands, so we probably we don't even add more, I would say. What we do though is go to, we could probably add a little bit more, maybe like 2. That's better. Maybe change the seed. The seed basically determines the distribution. Okay, it does just nothing. Okay, well, if you want to resist all I want to change, then I guess. Hold on. Come on. Seed. Give me something. Okay, nope. How about simple? Nope. Okay, I guess it's just okay. Oh yeah, so to make them more visible, these ones are quite thick. So we go into hair shape and change the strand shape to -0.5, and also diameter root to, I guess we could keep it at 1 and then put this to 1 as well. Oh, that's actually quite thin, so we could put this to 2, maybe 4. Well, skipping 3. Okay, this looks quite okay. We could probably do the same for these hairs as well. Maybe not 4. Maybe we can reduce the amount of simple children, maybe to 50. Yeah. You just have to play around with the settings to get the perfect settings you need in the end. That's just how it is with hair. Hair is quite annoying to set up, but once you have it like done, it looks just super good. Yeah, let's put that to 1 as well. Ooh. Maybe 0.75, I guess. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, now we have our hair textures done. We can save that. And that's gonna be everything for today. Of course, hope you enjoyed today. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Tomorrow we're gonna, as you can see in my thingy right there, down there, like right there, you can see that we're gonna talk about creating a satisfying animation. If you look at stuff like on YouTube, there are like dozens of compilations. We're gonna look at a few, get some inspiration, and then we're gonna try to make our own in roughly less than 3 hours. So until then, hope you enjoyed. Maybe you'll join next time. Maybe that interests you, maybe not. I'll always have this, like the next topic, the next stream's topic, in this rotating text animation down there. So maybe you don't like the current topic, but you want to see the next one, you can always check that out. But until then, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time. Until then, take care.